Hello again. So this week's video we're going to be talking a little bit about some tagging techniques for fish. There's kind of a variety of tags, and different tags have different uses, different kind of results that you're trying to figure out. But I'm going to just cover two today and talk about a third one. So I'll start with that one. It's called a PIT tag, P-I-T tag. And it's a little radio. Actually, it's not radio. It's a marked tag that allows you to insert it into even very small fish like salmon fry. That you can implant this tag in, and the tag is sort of doesn't react to the body or whatever, so it'll just stay in there for the life of the fish. And they're coated with information as to like where the salmon were raised, released from, that kind of stuff, so that you'll know that if you get that tag as an adult, when the salmon comes back, you can check the numbers and things on that tag, and you can find out, okay, well, that fish was raised in Bandon, and then reared and maybe in Coal River, and then released in Coquille somewhere, something like that. So it's very useful information for tracking fish and figuring out where they've been. Two of the methods that I use in my work, I'm the tribal lamprey biologist for the Confederated Tribes of the Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw Indians. And we're working a lot with Pacific lamprey. We're working with them because the lamprey are a threatened or a sensitive species here in Oregon, and they're native, very old species, 400 million years old, which is hundreds of millions of years before we kind of showed up on the scene. Hundreds of millions of years before salmon. So really one of the oldest species that's kind of outdated. Even the dinosaurs, it's hundreds of millions of years before the dinosaurs were around even. So very, very old species. They've survived all this time, and then yet lately they've been sort of endangered because of their habitat being degraded. So one of the things that we're doing is we're collecting the fish locally. We collect them in Eel Creek, which is the stream that runs from Eel Lake, which is just north of Lakeside. Eel Creek comes out of Eel Lake, goes down, hits 10 Mile Creek, and right around where Highway 101 crosses the creek, and then goes another about maybe 3 miles or so to the ocean. Lamprey are anadromous, so like salmon, they rear in fresh water, then they go out to the ocean, usually for 2 or 3 years, and then come back. They are not natal. They do not go back to the natal stream where they necessarily, at least, where they were born, so they don't have that same aspect that salmon do, but they can also. Many of them do, but they don't seem to have that same homing instinct that salmon have. So in order to learn a little bit more about them, there just isn't a lot known, especially in the coastal streams. Most of the work on Pacific lamprey has been done on the Columbia, and that's it's the same species, but it appears to be maybe a little different in some ways. Our lamprey are significantly smaller than the Pacific lamprey that go up the Columbia, probably due to just the fact that the distance from the ocean to the spawning grounds here in our watershed is probably 10 miles at the most, and the lamprey that go up the Columbia or the Willamette can go literally hundreds of miles. It's probably some genetic predisposition to how far they need to travel and how big they need to be. But there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. So one of our projects has been to capture the fish the lamprey using electroshock, which has been something that we've sort of invented or started using. Most other places do not use that method, and it's been pretty effective for us. We've probably captured 100, 150 over the last couple of years using that. After we capture them, we put them to sleep using something called MS222 or MS222. That we weigh them, we measure them, and then we implant a radio tag in them, and also a Floyd tag. The radio tag is actually done surgically. It's a way of being able to locate the lamprey from a distance of up to a quarter mile away. The tag looks like this, and you can see that there. It's a relatively small tag, although when you're putting this inside of a fish, it's about as big as we can get. We make an incision in a particular spot in the tag that allows us access to the body cavity. We also poke a hole through their skin both behind that. We thread the antenna through a small tube as it comes out through the skin. We then remove that tube and push the radio tag down into the body cavity. And then kind of pull it, so kind of as the long, skinny, remember what a lamprey looks like, it's kind of like an eel-like form. So this, about this much of it is inside the body, and then the tag actually sticks out outside the body. We then suture the wound using sutures, just the way you would if you went to the doctor or had an operation. And then we put them in a recovery bath to allow them to kind of wake up and regain their equilibrium. We then transfer them to another recovery basket that's actually in the creek, allow them to kind of wake up in there. So that's this is actually a radio tag. It sends out, there's a battery in there. That bottom silver part is actually a battery. Each tag has a separate number to it. This one's number 38. You can see the little writing there on that little square inside it. It's all covered within a resin material that protects all the electronics inside. And the way we have this set up is they turn themselves off at night from 8 p.m. till 8 a.m. They are off, and then they turn on again at 8 a.m. and run for 12 hours. And we can track them anytime during that period. The reason we have them turn off like that is it saves the battery life. We can make these tags actually last over a year transmitting. And Pacific lamprey have an odd lifestyle in that they come in from the ocean, and instead of spawning immediately, they do what they call holdover for a whole year before they spawn. So they may come in February, March, May, June, any time kind of in the late winter or spring, and then they'll just hold over clear until the next, usually like the end of April, May is a typical spawning time for lamprey. So the tags, if they can last over a year, we can actually track them. Even if they just came in, we can still track them all the way until they spawn. So that's this is a radio tag. Let me show you a little bit about how that works. This is the receiver, and let me see if you can see that very well. It's kind of all in this case here. Yeah, you kind of see it. So you turn it on there, and this connection over here is for the antenna. So go ahead and hook that up. This is it's called an H antenna for obvious reasons. And importantly about that antenna is that it's directional. You can point it in a particular direction and it will beep it'll receive the signal more strongly if it's pointed in the direction that the tag is located. Okay, so I'm going to program this to start here. And I'm just going to monitor. Okay, so first thing that we need to do, actually do this before we implant this into the tracker, or into the lamprey, is to activate the tag. So we do that by taking the tag and we put it into this activator unit and just push start, and then the tag is now transmitting, and this is tag 38 that we kind of use for general purposes. And let's see, make some adjustments to the gain and stuff here. Okay, maybe kind of hard to see this. I just kind of hope you can. So right in here it tells you that there's now identified tag 38. And there it is again, ID 38 with a signal strength of 194. So the signal strength goes from about 30, probably at the least, and anything below that you simply don't pick it up, and 208 is as high as it ever gets. So since I've got this antenna or tag sitting right next to the antenna down here, we're getting a real high signal strength. So there's the tag just sitting right next to the antenna. So normally I would kind of hold the antenna, if I can get it untangled, sort of just hold the antenna like that, and I just kind of move it around, kind of pointing it in different directions, and then when I hit the right direction, I can kind of head in that direction. The signal strength will just keep getting higher and higher until I'm finally able to get literally right on top of it. I can usually find it within about a foot or two. Interestingly enough, even though we can get that close to finding them, I have yet to see a live lamprey with the tag in it, with the exception of one that I found spawning. And when they're spawning, they're just kind of out and about. They actually kind of don't pay any attention to anybody. So that just really shows you how well these lamprey can hide. Although one of the big problems we found using this method is that we have a lot of problems with predation here in the system. The system is so small, lamprey don't have a lot of places to hide. So probably 50 to 75% of the lamprey that we've tracked have been eaten in some way or another, preyed upon. So pretty tough environment for them. Why they have the kind of that predilection or predisposition to stay a whole year before they spawn, why that's genetically better for them than just coming up and spawning, I'm not sure. Maybe the adults get to kind of test the waters in effect to see if it's a good place for their young to rear. The young rear in sandy areas, so they stay in there in a larval form, kind of just like almost like a little worm, for somewhere between 5 and 9 years. So they're in there a long time. So maybe it's worth the adults to hang out for that extra year, just to make sure the creek doesn't dry up or something like that. Okay, so that's radio telemetry tags. That's what the official name is. And it's a really interesting way to track and find out whatever it is. You can also use these in fish or regular fish, or really just about anything that you can insert this into. The other tag that we use, I was going to show you this before we go on. This is a car antenna. It just sits on top of your car. It's got a magnetic base, which is got a screw attached to the bottom of it. So this just rests on top of your car. You run this in through the window and you can drive down the road and pick up your tags. So the other tag that we use in our lamprey is called a Floyd tag, and it's just a real simple tag. It's really the same kind of tag that you would find in a clothing store, where they punch it through the cloth, and then you just have that little kind of T-shaped end coming out of that'll have like the price on it or something. In this case, we write like I have the name of the watershed organization and a number on it that allows us to keep track of where this tag was originally implanted. So this goes into the back muscle right below the anterior dorsal fin of the lamprey. It's pushed in, you just pull the trigger, this will shoot one of these little tags in, it kind of folds it in. It's put into the muscle, and then it expands within that muscle or within the body cavity and holds in place. It's a visual tag meant so that you can, if for instance you find a lamprey that spawned out after it spawned and died, you can find that the tag sometimes maybe not even connected to the body, or sometimes it will be. Also, just sort of visual reference, if you see one in the water, you might be able to identify it as having a tag. So pretty simple tag. Doesn't really have any information other than what's physically written on the tag itself. You can kind of see the names and numbers there. And the numbers are on the back side. So that's all written in the data forms so we can keep track of that. So that's it for the tagging. We collect that information, we put it into a GIS map so that we can kind of track where the lampreys started, where various spots along the way, how long was in each of those locations, and finally where it died, and we try to identify what killed it. So whether it was predation, or whether it died after spawning, or sometimes we just don't know what killed it. Sometimes it's pretty obvious, because sometimes they're not in the water anymore. They've been dragged up on land. We've had a couple that are kind of up in some of the mountain areas around us and some of the hills. So obviously that's avian predation. And one other thing I'll just kind of mention here, speaking of data, is that GIS mapping is really kind of the up and coming way of keeping track of data and presenting data. Allows you to use different kinds of data and overlap them kind of on different layers. So it's very useful tool, and if you ever get a chance to take a class in GIS, I think in the future you're almost going to have that. It'll be one of those things that will be expected of you. And when I've done applications for just various jobs throughout the last few years, or if we've been interviewing people, it's kind of one of the questions that we ask is if they have any GIS training. The other thing that's really important in terms of data is have a good knowledge of the Microsoft Excel program. Almost all of our data sheets that we use in the field, we create ourselves, and those are all made on Excel. And then in the end, almost all the data storage and analysis is all done within Excel. So the more you know about how to operate, how to create formulas, how to look at things like correlations and stuff, some of the built-in features of Excel, the more knowledge you'll have when you get into a job about what to do with the data once you have it, once you've collected it. And that's really important to an employer. So hopefully you'll be able to use some of the information that you've gotten in this class, and some of the information you can acquire, like learning Excel, learning GIS, and have a really good basis, so when you start to apply for jobs, you'll have a kind of a step up over other people that are applying for the job. I really encourage you to take the information that you've learned in these videos and you've learned in the class, and incorporate that into your applications and or resume. It's there's a lot of people usually going after jobs, and if you can demonstrate the fact that you know what a multi-parameter probe does, that you've seen what a sonde can do, if you know a little bit about radio tags, if you know about digital thermometers or continuous temperature thermometers, and when you would use one, when you might use the other. That's really important background information for an employer to be interested in hiring you. So I really encourage you to incorporate the stuff that you've learned through these videos. I wish you could say that you've had all the hands-on experience like you usually get in this class, because I think that's one more step towards proving that you can do what they're going to want you to be able to do. But a lot of the questions, especially on federal applications and state applications and stuff, they'll kind of ask a question, then they'll say, do you know anything? It'll have like check boxes, and the first one will be like, I don't know anything about this subject, and the second one will be, I've been trained in this subject but don't have field experience, and then it kind of goes on from there till you get to I'm an expert at this and people come to me for advice. So one of the advantages you'll have now is you'll be able to sort of check a lot of the those might involve having some knowledge of equipment training in the field for water quality, and at least you can say is you have some education on these, and that gives you maybe that one extra step that'll help you get that job. So tout it and use it, and good luck. And I think this is my last video, so thanks for being in the class, and good luck with your career. Take care.